In 1998, a simple, unassuming box sat on the bottom shelf of almost every hardware store in America. Inside that box was a natural mineral powder. It cost exactly $3. And it could take a gallon of murky, contaminated water and turn it crystal clear, stripping out heavy metals, toxins, and impurities in a matter of minutes. Families used it for camping. Preppers stocked up on it for their basements. Everyday homeowners used it instead of installing expensive under-sink systems. It was reliable, it was incredibly cheap, and it was absolutely everywhere. Fast forward to the year 2003. You walk into that exact same hardware store. You walk down that exact same plumbing aisle. And the bottom shelf is completely empty. You ask the store manager where it went. He shrugs, he doesn't know. You drive across town and check a competitor's store. Nothing. By 2003, this highly effective $3 mineral powder had completely vanished from every single retail shelf in the United States. There was no public recall. The FDA didn't issue a safety warning. The EPA didn't ban it. There were absolutely no news reports of contamination or danger to the public. It just disappeared. Quietly. Overnight. But here is the multi-billion-dollar coincidence. That very same year, the exact year the powder vanished, the bottled water industry crossed $10 billion in annual revenue for the first time in human history. Let's go back and look at the timeline because the paper trail is hiding in plain sight. In 1999, you could still find this powder sitting right next to the PVC pipes and basic charcoal filters. It was a staple. By the year 2000, regional distributors quietly stopped restocking it. Store managers assumed it was just a minor supply chain hiccup. By 2001, the barcode started scanning as discontinued in major national retail chains. By 2002, even the independent mom-and-pop hardware stores were being told by their massive suppliers that the product was permanently out of stock. And by 2003, the retail erasure was absolute and complete. At the exact same moment this $3 permanent solution was being quietly pulled from the market, something else was happening. The aisles they used to hold this cheap mineral powder were suddenly expanding. But they weren't filling up with cheap alternatives. They were suddenly dominated by massive, expensive plastic filtration systems, $300 reverse osmosis tanks, $50 replacement cartridges that you were forced to buy every 3 months like a mandatory subscription service, wall-to-wall supermarket displays of single-use plastic water bottles. The consumer water purification market was rapidly transforming from a simple, affordable, one-time purchase into a massive, recurring revenue model. A multi-billion-dollar machine. The major corporations weren't just selling you water anymore. They were selling you the anxiety of contaminated tap water, while systematically removing the most affordable, natural solution from your reach. They needed you hooked on their plastic cartridges and their plastic bottles. A $3 powder that lasts for months and replaces a complex filtration system is a direct, existential threat to a business model built entirely on planned obsolescence and continuous consumption. We watched the industry executives celebrate record profits. We watched the stock prices of major water and filter conglomerates skyrocket. And we watched the American consumer blindly accept that paying hundreds of dollars a year for clean water was just the new normal. But here is the secret they couldn't bury. They didn't destroy the mineral. They just controlled the distribution. They pushed it out of the retail market and out of the public consciousness. But the earth still produces it. The raw science behind it hasn't changed. And if you know exactly what to look for and exactly where to look, it is still out there. It still works just as perfectly today as it did in 1998. It is still cheap, and it still terrifies the water industry. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what this mineral is, the undeniable science of how it purifies water at a microscopic level, and most importantly, how you can bypass the retail blockade and get it for yourself. The truth is finally coming back to the surface, and it starts right now. To fully understand why this $3 powder was such a massive threat to a $10 billion industry, you have to look at what it actually is and the terrifyingly simple science of how it works. If you take a piece of this raw, naturally occurring mineral and you look at it under an electron microscope, you won't see a solid rock. You will see an endless, infinite honeycomb-like matrix. It looks like a microscopic sponge made entirely of crystal. Because of this incredibly complex, porous structure, just one single teaspoon of this powder has the exact same total surface area as an entire professional football field. But it is not just a physical net, it is a chemical magnet. This specific mineral carries a uniquely powerful, permanent negative ionic charge. Now think about the most dangerous contaminants currently lurking in your tap water. Arsenic, heavy metals, synthetic chemical runoff. Almost all of these toxic contaminants carry a positive ionic charge. When you drop a small pinch of this powder into a gallon of water, a violent microscopic reaction occurs immediately. The massive surface area of the honeycomb structure acts like a localized magnetic field. The positive heavy metals and toxins are instantly, violently pulled directly into the porous chambers of the powder. They do not just get blocked, they get locked inside the molecular structure like a puzzle piece. This process is called ionic adsorption. And once the heavy metals are trapped inside the mineral, they absolutely cannot be released back into the water. Within 10 minutes of adding this powder to completely murky, brown, contaminated water, something miraculous happens. The mineral, now incredibly heavy with the trapped toxins, naturally sinks directly to the bottom of the container. It forms a solid, compact layer of sludge at the base, and the water sitting directly above it. It is completely, immaculately pristine. You do not need water pressure. You do not need electricity. You do not need a $300 plastic reverse osmosis system installed by a professional plumber under your kitchen sink. You just need gravity and a $3 bag of dirt. But what about chlorine in modern chemical treatments? Academic studies buried deep in university archives that you will absolutely never see publicized by the water industry, have proven that the unique crystalline structure of this mineral rapidly accelerates the off-gassing of volatile chemicals. It forcefully breaks down the molecular bonds of chlorine and chloramine in tap water, turning a harsh, chemical-smelling glass of city water into something that tastes like it came directly from an untouched glacial spring. And the financial math is what truly terrified the corporate boardroom. Let's break down the reality of modern consumerism. A standard under-sink filtration system costs about $300 up front. Then you are forced to buy a $50 replacement cartridge every 3 to 6 months. If you buy bottled water for a family of 4, you are spending upwards of $600 to $1,000 a year on single-use plastics that are actively destroying your hormones. You are literally trading physical stacks of $100 bills year after year just to drink safe water. Meanwhile, a single pound of this raw mineral powder costs pennies to extract. A $3 supply could easily provide a family with pure, safe drinking water for over 6 months. It strips out the lead, it traps the arsenic, it neutralizes the chlorine. It leaves behind the healthy, essential trace minerals that your body actually needs to survive, unlike reverse osmosis, which strips the water completely dead. It is the absolute perfect, natural, permanent solution. It was vastly better than their plastic filters. It was drastically cheaper than their plastic bottles. And it required absolutely zero recurring subscription fees from the consumer. The industry knew they couldn't compete with the science. They knew they couldn't compete with the price. So they realized they only had one option left. They didn't have to defeat the product in a fair market. They just had to make sure you could never, ever find it on a retail store shelf again. How do you completely erase a highly effective, beloved $3 product from thousands of retail stores nationwide without causing a massive public panic? You do not ban it. A federal ban requires public hearings. It requires congressional oversight. It creates a massive paper trail, and worst of all, it creates explosive media attention. The absolute last thing the $10 billion water filtration industry wanted was national news anchors talking about how a cheap natural dirt powder was outperforming their $300 plastic systems on live television. They didn't need a ban. They just needed leverage. If you dig deep enough into the Freedom of Information Act archives, and you look specifically at the lobbying expenditures between the years 2000 and 2003, a terrifying financial pattern emerges. During those exact 36 months, the 3 largest water filtration conglomerates in North America increased their Washington lobbying budgets by over 400%. We are talking about tens of millions of dollars quietly pumped into closed-door meetings, private dinners, and aggressive corporate pressure campaigns. But the real war wasn't fought in Washington. It was fought directly in the corporate supply chains. The strategy was brilliant in its ruthless simplicity. These massive filtration corporations went directly to the gigantic wholesale distributors, the mega companies that supply every hardware store, supermarket, and pharmacy in the country. They offer these distributors massive, unprecedented volume discounts on their new, highly profitable plastic filter cartridges and heavy undersink systems. But these massive financial incentives came with one very quiet, very strict, unwritten condition. If you wanted the multi-million-dollar discounts on the high-margin plastic filters, you had to permanently sever your contracts with the suppliers of the $3 natural mineral powder. It was a textbook corporate squeeze. For a retail distributor, the math was incredibly easy. Why dedicate valuable shelf space to a cheap, one-time purchase that makes a few pennies in profit, when you could fill that exact same space with a system that forces the consumer to return every 3 months to buy a $50 replacement part? The wholesale orders simply stopped. The warehouses were quietly emptied out. The barcodes were removed from the national inventory systems. And when local hardware store managers tried to reorder the powder for their angry customers, the computer screen simply flashed a cold, automated response. Discontinued by manufacturer. No laws were broken. No safety warnings were ever issued. The greatest natural water purification tool available to the American public was simply choked to death by corporate greed and supply chain manipulation. They successfully memory-holed an entire alternative science just to protect their recurring revenue models. Millions of families were forced into an endless cycle of buying expensive plastic garbage, completely unaware that a permanent, natural solution had been stolen right out from under them. But here is the fatal flaw in their brilliant corporate strategy. You can control the retail shelf. You can control the major distributors. You can even buy off the politicians. But you cannot patent the dirt of the earth. You cannot outlaw a naturally occurring mineral. And you cannot stop intelligent, independent people from finding it. When the mainstream retail blockade slammed shut in 2003, the powder didn't vanish. It just went underground. It became a legendary staple in the deep off-grid survivalist communities. Homesteaders, alternative science advocates, and people entirely distrustful of municipal water systems kept the supply chains alive. They bypassed the megacorporations entirely. They started sourcing the raw, unbranded mineral directly from the deep earth quarries. They traded it in unmarked bags. They sold it on heavily encrypted, independent wholesale websites. Today, right now, while the rest of the country continues to haul massive cases of toxic plastic water bottles into their homes every week, there is a quiet, decentralized network of people who never stopped using the mineral. In the final chapter, I'm going to show you exactly how to break free from the plastic matrix forever. The corporate water industry completely erased this product from the retail ecosystem because they knew that once you understood how to use it, you would never give them another single dollar of your money for the rest of your life. They want you searching for branded water filters. They want you looking in the plumbing aisles. But to find the raw, unadulterated source of this miracle, you have to look completely outside of their controlled matrix. The true geological name of this mineral is clinoptilolite zeolite. But you cannot buy it in a shiny box at the supermarket. To get the exact same pure, highly charged powder that vanished in 2003, you have to bypass the consumer water market entirely and look toward the industrial, agricultural, and deep earth mining sectors. You have to buy it raw. You have to buy it in bulk. And when you find a direct, independent mining supplier, you will be utterly shocked to discover that you can secure a massive 5-pound canvas sack of pure, food-grade clinoptilolite zeolite for less than the cost of a single disposable plastic replacement filter cartridge. And the method to completely replace your expensive home filtration system is almost terrifyingly simple. You do not need to alter your plumbing. You do not need tools. You simply take a large 1-gallon glass jug, do absolutely not use plastic, and you fill it directly from your municipal tap. No matter how heavy the chlorine smells, no matter what invisible heavy metals are lurking in those ancient city pipes, just fill the jug. Take exactly 1 heaping tablespoon of the raw, white zeolite powder and drop it directly onto the surface of the water. Take a long wooden or stainless steel spoon and stir the water violently. Create a deep vortex. You want to force the massive, microscopic surface area of the mineral into direct, aggressive physical contact with every single molecule of water in that container. Then you simply walk away. For the next 15 to 20 minutes, gravity and ionic magnetism will do the exact same work that a $300 reverse osmosis machine does, but entirely naturally. As the water settles, the negative charge of the zeolite acts like a relentless vacuum. It magnetically binds the positive ions of lead, arsenic, volatile organic compounds, and synthetic chemical runoff. It physically locks them deep inside its microscopic honeycomb cage. Because the mineral is heavy, it rapidly sinks directly to the absolute bottom of your glass jug, taking every single trapped toxic nightmare down with it. It forms a dense, unbreakable layer of toxic sediment at the base. The water resting directly above that sediment is no longer municipal tap water. It has been stripped of industrial poisons. The harsh, burning chemical smell of chlorine has been entirely neutralized. Yet, unlike reverse osmosis, which leaves water completely acidic and dead, the zeolite leaves the essential, healthy, naturally occurring trace minerals like calcium and magnesium perfectly intact. To harvest your water, You simply pour the crystal clear top layer into a clean serving pitcher. If you want to be a perfectionist, pour it through a simple, unbleached cloth or stainless steel mesh just to catch any floating microscopic dust. What hits your glass is arguably the most pristine, hydrating, biologically compatible water you will ever consume in the modern era. If you don't believe the visual clarity, buy an independent, high-grade water testing kit. Test your tap water and watch the vial turn a horrifying, glowing yellow as the reagent reacts to the heavy metals in chlorine. Then test the exact same tap water after a 20-minute zeolite treatment. The vial will remain flawlessly, perfectly clear. The science is absolute. The proof is undeniable. And here is the ultimate insult to the multi-billion-dollar filtration industry. Once that zeolite sludge at the bottom of your jug is fully loaded with toxins, you don't throw it in the garbage. You can literally dump it directly into your backyard garden or your potted plants. The soil biology naturally breaks down the trapped compounds safely, while the mineral itself heavily aerates the soil and dramatically boosts plant growth. It is a perfect zero-waste loop. They took it off the shelves because they knew it was the ultimate consumer liberation. By ordering a single bag of raw clinoptilolite zeolite today, you instantly sever your financial ties with the plastic bottle conglomerates. You take absolute control over your water. They tried to bury the dirt, but the earth always wins. Now you know the exact name. You know exactly how it works. The only thing left to do is go get it and never buy a water filter again.